Hi there, I'm meteorologist Mary Mays and welcome to my channel. I'm here to give you an update on the really significant severe weather threat that's developing for tomorrow and looking at a pretty big outbreak being possible. There's a lot going on, so let's go ahead and get right into it. So first things first, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, feel free. Let's take a look at the threat for tonight because we actually do have the risk for a couple of strong storms really stretching from Nebraska into, even into Minnesota. This includes, Sioux Falls and South Dakota, that northwest edge of Iowa. And then you got this little cluster potentially for some stronger storms in northern Texas through central Oklahoma, eastern Oklahoma, even into the southwest edge of Missouri and the western edge of Arkansas. It's not a guarantee that you'll see powerful storms in these areas, but it's a possibility. This is not the main event by any means, but we are going to kind of back up our HRRR here and take a closer look. So you'll see some storm development in Texas and Oklahoma. Could have some wind with these. Likely going to see wind being the main threat. There's a little tornado risk right here kind of in Texas into Oklahoma, but I would say wind and hail main threats with these storms. Not a guarantee that you're going to see anything big, but it is a possibility, and you'll see those little storms developing there from Nebraska into Minnesota. Now, that's going to be pretty close to the cold air, so it's going to be kind of iffy whether or not you see it. It's kind of a conditional risk in those spots, but keeping an eye on that, this afternoon and evening for Texas and Oklahoma and, kind of overnight into tomorrow morning, stretching from Nebraska into Minnesota. Once again, that's not the main event, but I did want to kind of point that out because our main event is going to be tomorrow. And this is likely going to be a regional outbreak of severe weather, possibly a tornado outbreak. We could see multiple tornadoes. We could see tornadoes that are EF2 or stronger in long track. So this could be a really big deal. We're hoping it's not. We always hope that. And, sometimes you do get moderate risk days that are a bust, but in this case, things are lining up. You've got a lot going on. So let's go ahead and take a look at the risk map and then we'll kind of follow this system through. So this is the risk for Friday. Timeline for these storms mainly going to start up in the afternoon, continue through the evening into the overnight. So some of this action happening when you're asleep. That's no good. You've got the moderate risk. That's level 4 out of 5. And I'm going to be back tomorrow with a morning update on these storms just in case this changes. This map will likely have some adjustments to it. But right now, really looking at kind of a bullseye from eastern Iowa into Illinois for tornadoes, strong large tract tornadoes. And then again from Arkansas into West Tennessee, that northwest corner of Mississippi, kind of southeast, the boot heel there of Missouri, and a little tiny portion of Kentucky. Now, if you're in the orange, that's an enhanced risk, and you folks have a chance for tornadoes as well. Don't get me wrong. Anyone that's kind of highlighted in the severe risk could see a tornado, but the biggest threat is in those moderate risk areas. You've also got the wind threat and the hail threat. Let's take a closer look at the tornado threat, and you can see the stretch is really, Illinois and into Iowa is kind of that bullseye there, and this includes portions of Missouri. This is including quite a few areas, including Des Moines, Peoria. These folks really need to be on alert. And these are going to be possibly some, really classic supercells in the afternoon. So they're going to be low precipitation. They're going to be photogenic. Now, what we get toward Little Rock, toward Memphis, sort of in this area, even, through West Tennessee, that is going to be a little messier. High precipitation supercells are more likely there. So that means that if you do have a strong tornado on the ground, it's going to likely be rain wrapped and hard to see, which in these areas, it can be hard to see anyway because of trees. We're starting to get our foliage in here and, kind of the return of the leaves, and that can really interrupt visibility for chasers or, spotters especially too. So that's something to keep in mind. And the threat will be closer toward the nighttime hours, kind of in this area further south. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Any of these folks could see a tornado, but these two kind of bullseyes with the hatched mark, that's where you're likely to see powerful EF2 and above long track tornadoes. And I know that sounds scary because it is kind of scary. Now, statistically speaking, your chances of getting hit are still pretty slim, even on a day like this. But if you're one of the unlucky people who is in the path of a tornado, it could be life-altering. It usually is life-altering. And you need to have a plan. If you live in a mobile home, it's not safe. You need to, go hang out with a friend or family member if they have a sturdy home, or go to a storm shelter. Storm shelters, that are rated for tornadoes, that are designed to withstand them, that's your best option. And then other than that, being underground in a basement is your second best option. And your third best option is in a sturdy home, a sturdy structure, and an interior room like a closet or a bathroom. And I know, this probably sounds a little intense. Well, because it is a pretty intense event, possibly. We're going to have some really high winds with this, especially Iowa into Illinois, and then also that big chance for hail, mainly in that area as well. Let's take a look at what's happening. So this is Friday, and in the morning we got a little bit of convection, and there's the thought that maybe that could help lessen the severe chances later in the day, but honestly I don't think it's going to have that big of an impact because it doesn't look like a big shield of rain like we would be hoping for. You start to see that low pressure really winding up. You've got this powerful surface low. You're going to have a really rockin' low-level jet at night. And you start to see some possible supercells developing here in the afternoon between Iowa and Illinois. That's kind of that spot, that moderate risk area that we're keeping an eye on. And you're seeing this action as well, not quite as, it's going to be a little messier toward the south there in West Tennessee and parts of Arkansas and in Missouri, western Kentucky. And then you see this all kind of congeal into a big line. And even when you've got that line of storms pushing, you're still going to see some embedded tornadoes. And this is pushing through, the Midwest and Middle Tennessee toward the nighttime hours. And Tennessee leads the nation in nighttime tornadoes. And there's a reason why they're more common in the South. It's because of that low-level jet that develops at night, transports that Gulf moisture into this region. And that's a lot of times where you get that fuel for those nighttime tornadoes. So just keep that in mind. They're deadlier because people are less likely to get the warnings for them. Make sure you have warnings on loud enough to wake you up, and have everything you need in your safe space. First of all, know where you are going to head. Make sure the whole family knows the plan. Have food, have water in that area, and have your shoes. Change clothes, that sort of thing is nice to have. You want shoes if you end up getting hit by a tornado or, even really damaging straight line winds. Being able to get out of your home safely is important. And you're going to have to walk over glass and that sort of thing. So have some shoes on hand. That is the number one tip that people need to know that they don't know. So you see these storms pushing through, and then all of this action kind of heads, toward the East Coast. And we do have a severe weather threat, for like Buffalo and Pittsburgh tomorrow, and then also kind of stretching along the eastern coast from Tallahassee up through Savannah into Wilmington. Basically, our main concern, though, is going to be tomorrow. That's when the biggest risk for severe weather is in place, and you need to be alert. So we're going to get a closer look at what's happening tomorrow in the trouble spot. So you start to see tomorrow in that top moderate risk area, kind of eastern Iowa into western Illinois. So watch what happens. You start to see these supercells developing, and these are really going to be packing a punch. This is, in the afternoon, 5, 6, 7 o'clock into the evening hours. And then as these storms push to the east, they kind of form into this powerful line. That area, that little time period in the afternoon, it might not seem like, a ton of time for stuff to get going. But, as early as 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you need to be alert. And these storms will continue into the early evening hours. So it's a span of just a few hours, but a lot of damage can happen in that amount of time. And then here is what happens Friday for kind of the Mississippi Valley. And once again, this area right here, eastern Arkansas into western Tennessee, kind of including the Boot Hill, this is the area where we're likely to see that development of really strong, powerful supercell storms. You see that kind of bean shape forming. And that's where we're going to have, potentially long track supercells that drop strong EF2 and above tornadoes. That's the, big damaging tornadoes that stay on the ground for a long time. It's really concerning, We're going to be watching this carefully, but this is going to be into the afternoon and evening hours. And you can see this trails all the way back into, portions of Louisiana, into Texas, and goes all the way up into the Midwest. This is going to be a little powerful line. And as it kind of really forms into a line and starts to push into, areas like Nashville and Bowling Green, you're still likely going to have some embedded tornadoes in this line, in addition to really high gusty winds and hail. So bottom line, you need to be paying attention to the forecast. You need to be paying attention to current weather conditions. And if you're in this red, orange, yellow, or even this green area, please stay alert. But especially the red and the orange, you folks are going to be at the highest risk for really strong, damaging, severe thunderstorms and strong tornadoes, especially in those red areas. So that's a look at what's happening as we head into Friday. This is the risk Saturday. So Saturday morning, you'll still get some action. Buffalo, into Pittsburgh, even Cleveland kind of included here. And then Saturday afternoon, that threat shifts toward the East Coast. So from Dothan, Tallahassee, up through Wilmington. It's not going to be a major issue for most folks, but there's still going to be a severe weather threat into Saturday, but it's really going to be reduced by Saturday. Now, let's talk real quick about next week. Day 6. This is for next Tuesday, and we've already got an enhanced risk for portions of Arklatex into southern Missouri. Same spots that are getting the weather tomorrow are going to see it again on Tuesday, and this next risk is something to pay attention to. This might be another outbreak. So there's a lot going on with the forecast. So please just stay safe. I'm going to pop on here tomorrow again to do another quick look at the forecast and talk about any changes to it. Bottom line, it's going to potentially be a pretty big event, and you need to stay weather aware, especially if you're in those risk areas. Take care.